I've been meaning to have another crack at the design of the Anorak. It's not simple enough. One of the principles I've been aiming for, the clothing and equipment is simple to make, simple to repair, and simple to modify. There's a certain elegance in simple garments that really jump out. In the old pattern, here is the back shoulder yoke, and here is the front chest. Then the plackets sit on top and integrate the hood. So what I'm trying to do is integrate that placket into that piece, and the hood also has the same length, so that this next seam just continues straight through the placket. And what that does is it cuts out that seam, immediately creating 2 of the 3 plackets in the assembly of the hood. Then I was interested to cut out this shoulder seam, and to do that I took half that yoke, this chest piece, stuck the 2 pieces together. In fact, I didn't need to stick it, I could have traced it in one piece. Now that shape creates no seam in the shoulder. So that's the process I'm in, is simplifying the Anorak, eliminating seams, one, because it's a point in which an unwaxed jacket can take water, but 2 is it's time consuming in the cutting and in the sewing. What remains to be seen once I've done these modifications is how efficient it is or not on the fabric. Righto, so there's the new pattern completely laid out on 3 meters of canvas, a little bit over 3 meters, fraction, I think. I'm not sure if there's more or less wastage in this pattern over the other pattern. I don't think so. Certainly it fits in the same amount of fabric, and I might be able to rearrange this a little bit to increase the size of those wastage pieces so that they can be used for something else. But so far so good. I have finished a new iteration on the Anorak. I'm going to show it, try and explain most of the changes, and then I'm going to wax it because I'm interested in trying to source high quality canvas unwaxed, because colours, a whole range of colours will open up, and then waxing the coat after production, even though it's much more labour intensive, it results, I think, in a better jacket because the inside of the jacket is not saturated with the wax treatment. The outside of the jacket is saturated with the treatment, making the inside a more comfortable, softer feeling, especially when new. And then as you keep building up the layers on the outside, you end up with this nice patinaed coating. In fact, that red Anorak up there is my first attempt at making a Anorak out of unwaxed canvas and then waxing it afterwards, and that's my favourite jacket to wear. There's a few things about it that I think make it so much more comfortable. When you perspire, the inside of the jacket, being a raw cotton, will absorb that vapour. Then over time it will breathe off or vent from the jacket, whereas a saturated waxed coat will sweat on the inside, so the vapor will condense and you'll get a sweaty feeling inside, a bit like you get with a plastic jacket. Nowhere near as bad, but a bit like that. And then on top of that, with the body heat, is bringing the wax treatment to a more liquid form, and you get that kind of oily condensation. It's quite uncomfortable on a new jacket. Over time just wears off and dries off on the inside, and you end up with effectively the same, not quite as plush and comfortable as this, but effectively the same. Still got the signature full zippers down the side of the arms, and even though this particular canvas is very light, once it waxes it will darken. Wrist, for example, it creates a bellowing in the sleeve that gives you freedom of movement. Now at the moment the weight of this jacket is pulling down on my shoulders, but now when I get this, I pull this up, cinch it in, you can see that whole top of half of the jacket now resting on itself, and I can already feel a releasing in the movement. And all the jackets are designed for that, with bulk in the body. This is being held at the moment, but bulk in the body, so you can wrap a bum bag around it and pull it in and keep your body warmth in, or a utility belt. Okay, now the shoulder, as you can see, no shoulder seam, so when you're packing and stuff like that, there's no rub going on there and less opportunity for the rain to come through. That's because that whole back panel is one piece to here. Saved me a lot of time in the cutting and pieces. I've reduced the pattern down to, is it 14 pieces, down from 21 pieces. The sleeve cuff still has the leather, but instead of being piping that sits on the inside of 2 pieces, so the inside piece and the outside piece and the piping sits in there, It's neat, it's tidy, but it's not really doing everything it was supposed to do, which is protect that edge. Now the lever is a binding sitting on top, so that's a thoroughly protected edge. Likewise with the pocket. So I try to put those kangaroo leather pipings on any edge that gets a lot of wear. So there's the zipper all the way through down to the bottom. Being longer now, it lays out flat, a full body length now, so you can use it as a proper ground sheet. This one is one single seam with I guess you call it a pleat at the top that creates a nice box around the top of the head. It's definitely a much more roomy hood. Still the same ties. And I've explained in the other jackets, just a simple way of doing these ties. 2 twists, cinch, and if you really want it to hold, put a third, and it's done. See, the hood sits neat around there, so motorcycle wearers can put your helmets on. That's still cinched up nice, and that hood shouldn't fill up with air. Still got the kangaroo pouch here. Still got the hand pouches behind that kangaroo pouch with the gusset catch and a gutter catch. So that keeps things here. This, by the way, feeds back in there, so if you wanted to, you could slip your phone back in there and keep it out of the way. And the bum cover extends further, so when I'm sitting, I am fully covered. Still got the Tagua nut slot buttons. They're not plastic. No plastic is in this. With this new pattern, I'm going to make a batch of olive green canvas. That olive green, so I'm going to make a few anoraks out of that colour. Then a dark brown, as we normally see, and a light brown. And in the meantime, I'm still hunting down a source of this very finely woven but thick 10 ounce about canvas in colours. So anyway, let's wax this little beauty up and see what colour it turns to. So waxing, good idea to do it before it starts getting cold, because a summertime temperature, any warmth is good for waxing. What you're basically wanting to do is you want the weave to open in the temperature, you want the waxing treatment to be liquid so that it penetrates into the jacket. Alright, so this is now flat on the bench. So begins the process of waxing. This is the large Artisan Sun block. There's enough in this to do 2, possibly 3 anoraks. So Artisan does a small, medium and large block. I think I prefer to get the large just so I can keep on using it. Okay, there's the block. Literally putting heaps of it on, and I'll get a hairdryer and we'll see what that does. Okay, this is going to look awesome. You can see how dark that's gone. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, well, that broke a sweat. I forgot how difficult the using the block was. So I've melted it down in the pot. And now I'll just paint it on. Much faster, much easier to get into those little grooves that you can't hold very well. It uses a lot more wax though. So I normally do this if I make my own block. And very importantly, you see how it sits on top. Yeah, the rubbing must create a friction, and you can see it's getting in there, whereas this is just sitting on top. So the next process is the hairdryer with a a boot brush or even this paintbrush and just work it in there with heat. Yeah, it's a good application. Another good tip is if you've got gloves that you need to be waxed, wear them. They're going to get waxed. All right. See the pocket? See the pocket's got a gutter? Good idea to get it in that side, but not on your hand side. So the hand goes in that way, but the weather gets there. So just get it in there. Likewise, underneath the top kangaroo flap, and then the gutter of the kangaroo flap as well. So you're just getting it in anywhere where the weather can hit, and be thinking about wind-driven weather too. So if you're on a motorbike or up on a mountain and it's blowing a gale, that rain, sleet or whatever is hitting you, and then the wind is driving it up in different angles. So just try and proof anywhere where that's a factor. This heat, not only does it get the wax and the linseed oil into the weave, when it cools off, it starts a gradual process where the linseed oil, I think the word is polymerizes, but it creates a chain which effectively what that is like a plasticky coating, and it releases that polymerization under heat, and then forms it again when it cools. I'm not too sure how long that process takes, but I think it's more than just cooling. I think it's days for it to set. And then there's the thinner, which is like a gum terps with this Artisan Sons fabric wax. I don't think they're using a gum terps to thin it. I'm assured though that there's not a petrochemical based thinner. So as a result, this Artisan Sun doesn't have any fume in it, whereas the homemade job that I sometimes use, which is roughly 1 part beeswax, 1 part boiled linseed oil, and 1 part gum turpentine or citrus turpentine maybe, that also creates a good block for doing this. But the gum terps has a really strong eucalyptus smell. Nice, but it's pretty overpowering after a time. But anyway, after the polymerization and the off-gassing of that gum terps, it doesn't smell, but it takes a good week hanging out for that smell to dissipate. The way of melting the wax and painting it on puts on a lot more wax than is necessary, but it's faster. When you heat it in, there's a lot of wax available, so you get a pretty consistent penetration into the fabric. But the last step is to take a scraper like this. Artisan's Sun provides these scrapers, but it's just a sharp edge of some sort, and you scrape it back, the excess, and put it back in the pot. So you can see the excess wax, when you crumple up the fabric, it creates these impressions. That's a sign that there's too much wax or excess wax on there. So we just scrape back the surface of the fabric and put it back in there for melting down later. You can see how much wax I've reclaimed in that, and I haven't done the hood yet, but the hood is a more difficult place because I can't easily lay it flat. So what I'm going to do is use the hairdryer and a cloth, a unwaxed cloth, to absorb some things off it. But I wanted to say that this lengthy process is necessary for a jacket that's never been waxed before. It is a lengthy process to really get that base waxing into the fabric. Once that base is there though, it's very quick and easy to build up on top. So that method that I showed before, just getting the block, an artisan sun block, and rubbing it on, would be easily sufficient for re-proofing an already waxed jacket, because it already has the base into the fabric. So the other method of painting on melted wax onto an unwaxed jacket, I think is probably the necessary step in terms of the speed of application and a consistent waxy application, but then it's necessary once you've heated it in to scrape back the excess. And that's the finished look. So we'll just go through the process of zipping her up. See, the inside is nice fresh cotton, the outside is waxed. So it's a much better outcome. Anyone new to the jacket, you see how the sleeves are long? It's designed to always have your cuffs done up. I get my plackets in place and do up the buttons. There's a flap that covers the whole entry to the kangaroo pocket. It sits in front of hand pockets. The kangaroo pocket is in front of the hand, separate pouch. And the hand pocket has a gutter, prevents wind-driven snow and rain to enter the pocket. It returns back in there, so you can secure things back in there. And then the face of the pocket has a gusset to catch things on their way out. If I'm making these roll top fun bags, huge things, actually double into a backpack when they're unrolled, but when it's rolled, still trying to find an alternative to that plastic clip. And there's no denying that's very simple and easy, but this goes in the same way. Lift the jacket up. My body warmth is kept in the essential area, and if I start to overheat, open these right up. First thing, get your sleeve off, throw it behind your back, and you'll cool off considerably. If you notice the placket sitting below my chin, that is deliberate. Not for the plackets that come right up. One is, I personally haven't experienced weather that justifies that level of coverage, and I have been in the far north of Scotland and in the deep winter, and it was damn cold, but I scarf underneath my coat did that suitably. But it's also so that you can have this done up and this hood can come off and on without having to fiddle around and open this up to get the hood down. You see the hood fits nicely around the chin and things, so helmets can get on and seal it up. Right guys, I'm pretty happy with this Anorak. I'll be testing this out this winter. Just like that red one was the same process actually, a unwaxed canvas and then waxed after the make. The original Anoraks were that, and then I started buying wax off the roll, but I think I'm heading back to the unwaxed make.